Welcome to a virtual reality representation of a human nose. Currently, we're looking at a view of a head. Shadowed behind, we can see the human nose in its entirety. The white particles are airflow trajectories during tidal breathing. As you can see, we're looking at the side of the nose. It's quite expansive and occupies quite a large space in the human head. There's some functional features of the human nose I'd like to point out to you. Let's commence by taking a journey down the conducting nasal airway. This journey begins at the nares. Here we have the left nares. These act as funnels, guiding the air into the nasal cavity. And you can see during exhalation, it also funnels out through the same point. Looking directly down the nose, we can see it's relatively symmetrical. We've got two parallel passageways that join at the rear. Looking down before we take the journey, we can see that the inferior turbinate occupies a space down here, and this is the inferior meatus, where the airflow is being conducted through. The middle turbinate is inside here, and this is the middle meatus. For this individual, there is no defined superior turbinate or meatus. Let's now take a journey down the nose. We're now in the conducting nasal airway on the left-hand side. We can see the airflow trajectories, and we're looking down now through the inferior meatus. You can see it's a rather tight space. Here we go. This is where we've got the inferior turbinate over here. And higher, we have the middle turbinate. And we're now traveling down the middle meatus towards the posterior region of the nose. It's a very confined space. And you see just up ahead, this is the nasal pharynx, so the nasal chamber. And if we peer down here, we would be looking down at the oral pharynx and then down through to the trachea, which is the pipe leading to the lungs. Now turning around and facing the front of the nose, we're now looking at the posterior choana. Now there's some interesting features here I want to point out to you. We can see here the inferior turbinate on the person's left-hand side is smaller than that on the right. So the right-hand side is congested. There's going to be different airflows occurring down each side of the nose. During inhalation, we can see more passing through on this side here. The middle turbinate, shown up here, is again smaller on the left side compared to that seen on the right. Let's now move and have a look at a side view of the nose. So we're moving outside the nasal space. And we can see over here, this is the maxillary sinus. It's a large chamber within the cheekbones of the person, and connecting the maxillary sinus to the nasal airway is this ostium over here. So this is the ostium, which is a small tube that connects the maxillary sinus to the middle meatus. Of course, this down here is the inferior meatus. Remember, moving vertically through the nose, inferior means lower and superior means higher. Moving to the front of the nose, again, we've got the nares. Now, at the top region of the nose, we've got the olfactory cleft. And this is where we've got the olfaction sensing system situated. And we can see, looking at the flow trajectory, that we've got particles moving slowly through this region, much faster through the main conducting airway down the lower region, down here. So we've got exhalation occurring. It's during inhalation that we really notice this. So still exhaling. Here we go, inhalation. Lots traveling across the bottom, a few small particles traveling very slowly through the upper region. So that gives us our ability to sense the smell. Now, we mentioned about the air velocities being different side for side, and that enabled different flow, different olfaction detection. So moving towards the rear of the nose, again, we're going past the nasal pharynx. We move to the right-hand side of the person, which is their congested nasal airway. And we can see here during inhalation, we just missed the inhalation. Let's look at the exhalation at the moment. We've got particles traveling down. There's less particles traveling on this side, the congested side than the other, but during inhalation, these particles here, again, large residence time up in the olfactory cleft. So that again enables different form of sensing. So you'll be able to have different sensitivities side for side in the nose. Now, some of you may be wondering about these gaps that are shown in the nose here. This is because the inferior turbinate located on this side is pressing hard up against the airway wall. Let's take a sectional view through the nose. And at the moment, let's take a coronal section. So here we are, starting from the anterior region, moving through the nares into the functional nose. And you'll notice immediately that this person's right-hand side has got a smaller cross-sectional area and perimeter compared to their left-hand side, meaning the left-hand side on this individual is patent, the right-hand side is congested. And we're moving down the nose. You'll see that we're starting to cut through the maxillary sinus, and look how big that is inside, a large cavity. Moving down, more posterior. Again, you can see that the cross-sectional area and perimeter is much larger on the right-hand side than the left-hand side. Of course, this is the middle turbinate. Down here is the inferior turbinate, but you can see the inferior meatus on the left-hand side of this individual is intact and full size, while on the left-hand side here, it's really been broken up because the inferior turbinate is pressing hard up against the walls. So in this individual, their right-hand inferior turbinate is fully engorged. Moving more distally through the airways, we come close to the posterior choana, and that's where the two airways join, and here we are there. We've arrived at our destination, the nasal pharynx. Let's now move back through there. So nasal pharynx, we're starting to see the inferior meatus and the middle meatus. We can see the flow trajectories passing through these air spaces. Again, noting the difference between the patent and the congested sides, the large maxillary sinus. For simplicity, we're not showing the maxillary sinus on this individual's right-hand side, but of course they would have one of those. And we're moving back now and more anterior. Again, noting the cross-sectional area. We can see up the top here is the olfactory cleft. Moving further and further anterior. We're now getting up to the nasal valve. Look at the difference in cross-sectional areas and perimeters. And we're now at the nares again. We can also take a side view of the nose. So if we go to the person's right-hand side, and let's take a section through there. We're going to travel, first of all, through the maxillary sinus. Again, notice how big it is. And if we look up on the inside, you can see the ostium there, which is connecting the maxillary sinus to the main conducting airway via the middle meatus. Moving through. We're now in the main conducting nasal airway on the left-hand side, and we can see up the top here is the olfactory cleft. We can see the airflow passing through the nose, and of course we've got the right-hand side as well. Moving back through the nose, we can see the maxillary sinus forming again, and completed. So again, from a functional perspective, we have the main conducting nasal airway. We have the inferior meatus, which is the lower region where the air flows through. We have the middle meatus. And connected to the middle meatus is the maxillary sinus, and the connection is made through the ostium. Of course, at the top of the nose, we have the olfactory cleft up here. Well, that's our short tour of the human nose. I hope that's been helpful and you've enjoyed the experience. Thank you.